it's Julia. Welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be one that you guys have been asking for weeks. Today I'm doing a palette tag. I've seen so many of my friends do this. I believe it was started by Ali Glines and Samantha March, but I've seen a lot of my creator friends do it. And I think it's a really cute tag just because the question, like, what is your favorite eyeshadow palette? Whenever people ask me that, I'm like, what are you... I can't boil it down to that. There are so many different elements, and this particular tag really attacks all of them from all different angles. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I'm basically just going to be going through each of the palettes that represent each of the categories from this tag. I hope you enjoy it. Before we start, I want to take a quick second to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is Ana Luisa. I've been working with Ana Luisa for the past, I think, a year and a half or so. They're my favorite jewelry brand. I've been wearing these same hoops for the past entire half of the year. Can I lie? And this month I have my new Felicia and Rowena necklace and bracelet, which I've been wearing literally every day. Like, I haven't taken these off. I've been wearing them in the shower. Ana Luisa specializes in making luxury and sustainable jewelry pieces. They use 100% recycled gold and sterling silver in all their pieces, and all their packaging is recyclable. They never talk about this, but I also always love to give them props for the packaging that they send out their pieces in. They use really small shipping boxes and just really minimal sustainable packaging to keep the products all protected, but still get everything there in as minimal packaging as possible, and I really appreciate that. Plus, they produce their jewelry in small batches so that every piece is timeless, and they just have a really fresh rotation of pieces coming in and out. So my two new pieces this month are this necklace and this little bracelet here, and it takes a lot for jewelry to become like a forever piece for me that I keep on. The only pieces I really keep on are my earrings and then my bangle here, but ever since I got these two, I've just had them on because they match with everything. And I particularly have gotten a couple of questions about this bracelet here. So these are created in collaboration with the girls from Beauty Within. I love their skincare channel, and these pieces give me a somewhat Van Cleef vibe, but have obviously more affordable but also more sustainable edge. So these like small kind of dainty gold pieces look really good with either like chunky kind of more casual vibes like this outfit that I put together, or something a little bit more formal. You guys know I stand gold jewelry, but they have a really beautiful silver line as well, and that's what I get my mom gifts from. She really loves their silver line. I am endlessly proud to be an ambassador for them as a company that has sustainability at the front of its values and never wavering in that value. Today's do fairy of the day is a thought from a thought. Thank you so much for having your notification bell on. There's not much else to say. Full details of this look should already be on Instagram. I'm wearing my banana yellow dewy tea merch. And without further ado, let's talk about colorful powder, because that is what eyeshadow is. First up is, what is your newest palette? And for me, that is the ColourPop Tie-Dye collection. It should be the Kaleidos Escape Pod, but that still has not arrived yet. So my three newest eyeshadow palettes are from the ColourPop Tie-Dye collection. In particular, my favorite of the three is the In a Trance palette, but you would know that if you watched the full review video of this collection. We also have the Aura and Out, which you guys know my thoughts on from the video, and then the Miss Bliss, which is a beautiful little peachy tone moment. I think this is a very fitting trio to be my newest palettes right now. I think these color schemes are very summer ready, also very Pride Month appropriate, and I have really enjoyed working with these so far. Not you, you-ho. So yeah, the three from the ColourPop Tie-Dye collection are my newest palettes. And the title of oldest palette goes to, no surprise, my ABH Modern Renaissance. You guys know, I'm disgusting. I don't believe that powder things expire, so I've had the same Modern Renaissance for the past, I want to say almost 4 years now. Powder products, if you keep them in good condition, if you keep them in a nice dark non-humid area, they should be fine. You don't need to throw them out until they start performing badly or breaking you out or smelling weird. My Modern Renaissance palette has served me very well. I have used the absolute crap out of this one. I've hit pan on 2 shades. I'm trying to pan a few other ones. Let me know if you want to see a video talking about products I'm trying to pan right now, or products I have panned in the past couple months. I could maybe do that. It hasn't been a ton of things just because I haven't really been wearing makeup every single day, but this is by far my oldest palette. It has a lot of sentimental value attached to it, and it's still performing very well even though it is extremely old. So Modern Renaissance is my oldest palette, and then following it by a few months is the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette. Also the Master palette by Mario, that's pretty old too. Next up is, what is your most expensive palette? So I have decluttered 2 of the most expensive palettes I've ever owned. I decluttered my Pat McGrath Mothership 2 and my Sugar Pill Pro palette, which was $120 I think, and then $125 for the Pat McGrath. I was actually kind of surprised to realize that my most expensive palette is now my Huda Beauty new nude palette. The Huda Beauty big palettes are $65, and this is the only big palette that I own now. I decluttered Desert Dusk, and I love this palette. I definitely think that the formula in here is very special. Is it worth $65? I mean, no, because no makeup is worth $65. Every single makeup product is marked up insanely, but I think the formulation is very special, is genuinely a joy to work with, and is something that I would not mind paying a little bit of a premium for. So While this is the most expensive palette in my collection right now, I definitely do think it's one of the most special in my collection. And also the shimmers in here, whenever I put them on my eyes, never fail to get compliments in real life. I think that is a really big tell of what a really special product is when people who maybe don't even care about makeup otherwise notice and ask you what you're wearing on your eyes. Like, that's a special feeling. I like to keep my insert in here. I really like keeping these inserts just so that I don't stab the shadows with my fingers when I open them. I don't have long nails anymore, and I haven't in a couple months, but I am clumsy and do that often. So that's a really good hack if you do stab your things a lot.
No, very much I did not. What are you talking about? Not me. Wrong bitch.
And then for least expensive, unshockingly, it's ColourPop. ColourPop always comes through with good pricing for their products. In particular, their 9-pan palettes are the least expensive palettes I own. These are $12 each. So this is my Blush Crust palette. Kind of similar vibes to the Huda Beauty New Nude palette without this very special bright foiled shimmery shades. I personally really enjoy ColourPop's formula. I think it's probably the best formula that you can get for the price point, and ColourPop is the brand that I have the most eyeshadow palettes from. Also, Blush Crush, one of the few palettes that they have that doesn't have a pressed glitter, so yeah, it's a good time. Next up is everyday. So what's your most everyday palette? And this is a category that I think is very, very subjective. Some people's everyday very well may be like the In a Trance palette. I wish I was bold enough for this to be my everyday. I wish I had time in the morning for this to be my everyday. My everyday is brown. And there's also nothing wrong with that. I used to kind of knock myself, I guess, for being like, oh my god, I like brown eyeshadow, I'm so boring. But there's nothing wrong with knowing what you like and sticking to it. Whatever makes you feel beautiful is what's right and what's good for you. And for me, I like how I feel when I have colorful eyeshadow on. I feel creative, I feel fun, but I don't leave my house with colorful eyeshadow most of the time. Neutral makeup or just more soft glams is what makes me feel pretty, so that's what I do on the everyday when I'm going out into the human public. Honestly, my everyday is actually, for the most part, no makeup. Especially when I'm super busy, I fully don't mind going to class without makeup on, and that is something that I had to grow into. I really, like, for the entire first quarter of college, I wouldn't leave my dorm room if I didn't have brows and lashes on. So becoming more comfortable with not only wearing no foundation, but then also after that wearing no eye makeup and wearing no makeup in general has been kind of a journey for me that I've been trying to embrace. But for everyday palette, I selected the Kaja Chocolate Dahlia Trio. I really quite enjoy the Kaja Beauty Bento Trio. Chocolate Dahlia is in particular my favorite because you have one very nice basic champagne-y shade and then two beautiful brown mattes. So this kind of like mid-toned, kind of like cool-ish, but not too cool toned to a point where it looks ashy. Just nice mid-toned medium brown, and then a little bit of a deeper chocolate brown. So I can do like the softest look imaginable with just this in the crease and then this shimmer shade all over the lid. Or if I want to add a little bit of extra dimension, I can just pop this onto the outer corner or do like a nice winged effect. This is my go-to, especially for travel. I just love throwing this in because it takes up like no space. So I don't have to like think about the eye look at all when I'm doing it. It's just so intuitive because it's like there's not a lot to get distracted by. Also, something that I couldn't not include in my everyday is ColourPop Super Shocks, particularly my baby. You guys know what's up. I'm wearing Ritz on my eyes right now actually, but this is my favorite thing to wear on like bare eyelid. Kind of let the natural bluish sleep deprived tinge show through, and this just gives me kind of like a glossy wet lidded effect. I'll put like maybe a little mascara on, maybe some lashes if I'm feeling adventurous, and I look amazing and sparkly and beautiful and tired. Very tired. Okay, I talked a lot about my everyday 3 eyeshadows. Next up is most colorful, and this was definitely very difficult to select for because I have a lot of colorful eyeshadow palettes and there's a lot of different things in my collection. At first I was like, maybe I should do one of the ColourPop monochromatic palettes because obviously those are colorful, but I decided against that because it's kind of a cop-out. It's all one color, so it's not really colorful. I also thought about doing the James Charles Morphe palette, but this does have neutrals in it, so I wanted to go for something that had all colorful shades, and then I found the perfect one. This is my Kaleidos Futures in 4 VR Neon palette, and I think this is definitely the most Technicolor, bright, punchy, colorful palette that I have in my collection. Not a neutral to be in sight here. You can't really do anything very subtle with this palette, which is why I kind of enjoy it. Neon shadows, very difficult to formulate, very, very difficult to get right, and they really did that. I love Kaleidos' formula, which is why I'm very excited to try the Escape Pod palette if it ever makes its way to my home. But this definitely takes the cake for the most colorful. Also the outer packaging, like this outer packaging matches what goes on inside this palette, whereas this, like,
I don't give a fuck. Do I look like I give a fuck? Because I don't.
The smallest palette in my collection, so at first I thought it was going to be the Kaja Stacks again, but by product amount, it's actually this. This is my Tarte Lunar eyeshadow palette. It's one of the trios of foil finger paints. I got this one specifically for the silver in here. I really don't own any silvers in my collection. This took my breath away. Like, this is truly beautiful. The taupe in here is really nice as well. I hate the blue in here, but so I guess this palette is also kind of the smallest because for me it's really 2 shades. I don't acknowledge the blue in here. This formula is really special. It's a very metallic, basically kind of like a pressed pigment format, and these metallic shades show up like basically liquid metal in the eyes. They're insane. This little palette here, I don't use it very often because I have to remember to reach for this one. I'm not just gonna do an eye look with these 3 shades on their own, but I do think it's really beautiful and I really enjoy this formula. And then biggest palette, that'd be my Morphe James Charles. So this is 39 shades, I believe. Yeah, 39 because it's the same size as the 39A, which I used to have. This is gigantic. You guys know I don't like big palettes, and I probably would not buy more palettes that are around this size, or even anything that has more than 25 shades. That's pushing it. My sweet spot I think is around like the 12 to 16 shade mark. After that I feel like it can just be a lot more difficult to actually curate a good cohesive color story without getting too distracted in different places. For a rainbow palette, especially for like a staple colorful palette in my collection, I don't mind having a full huge big palette because it's a spectrum and because it's an artistic tool. So if this was like a palette where they were trying to do like a color story, I think 39 shades would be too many, but because it's a rainbow palette, I think it's kind of different. So this is my biggest palette, and I don't actually hate the size as much as I would if it were any other thing. Best memory. This one was fun. I had a couple different things in mind. I was gonna do the Modern Renaissance just because this palette is one that my grandmother got me, but I wanted to do as much variation throughout this video so I wasn't mentioning the same palette for multiple different categories, or as much as I could avoid that. And my best memory had to be the Marc Jacobs Scandalous palette. This palette, it looks the same as Modern Renaissance because it kind of is. This palette I bought in New York City. I lived in New York for about a month studying at Columbia, and while I was there I went through the worst breakup of my life. You'd think that this palette would represent all the bad memories from that time, but for me it really represents all the good that came out of that. That was probably the best thing that's ever happened to me, despite it like being awful in the moment. I'm so glad that it happened. So, Scandalous palette. Good memories. Also, great formula. Very underrated. Next up is the palette that's worth the hype the most, and I gotta say, whew, baby. Could have done so many different things for this category. I went with the Dose of Colors Francation palette just because this, oh god.
I just wanted to remind you that I'm better.
The shimmers in here are insane, but also the mattes, surprisingly amazing. Like, I wasn't expecting that much from Dose of Colors, but I'd heard good things, but I'd never heard anything overwhelming. But this palette, so good. I would definitely repurchase this one if I didn't have it in my collection. I can't emphasize enough how amazing this is. I know a lot of people are put off by the like outer packaging. A lot of people think it looks cheap, but truly, I think all the budget went into the formulation of these shadows, and
but she's so beautiful.
Not worth the hype. This one was easy. It's Charlotte Tilbury. Of course. Charlotte Tilbury shadows are not worth more than $10, $15 in my opinion. That's so shady. I'm so sorry. Especially I've seen her bigger palettes having a lot of hype. A lot of people, especially like Charlotte Tilbury ambassadors, using her palettes and being like, this is the best formula ever. It's straight up not good. Her mattes, mediocre at best, patchy at worst. I think her shimmers are just really flaky, very dry in texture. It's really just not a special formula. The only reason I have this palette and enjoy using it is because these 3 shades down here, these 3 eyeshadows, it's impossible to mess these shades up. But I wouldn't pay anywhere near the money that Charlotte Tilbury charges for her shadows. Oh, by the way, also not worth the hype, Natasha Denona and Viseart. Favorite palette from our favorite brand. This is a category specifically made for the Melt Gemini palette. I just love Melt eyeshadow palettes. I get excited whenever they come out with one. The Gemini palette is my favorite palette from them by far. Like, this color story is me. The name is me. I'm a Gemini. I'm a triple Gemini, I think. Like, I have 3 different Geminis in my star symbol chart, whatever. I will say I don't think it's the most beginner-friendly formula. These are really, really pigmented shadows, and also I don't think greens are ever really super beginner friendly anyways. I think greens just take a lot of finessing to get them to blend out nicely, but I love this palette. I love every single look I've created with this one. I love using it. I love reaching for it, and inspires me to no end. So this is definitely a favorite palette from my favorite brand. And then last but not least, my most used palette. I hate to do a repeat, but it's obviously Modern Renaissance, so we're talking about her again. I've panned Tempera. I have a huge pan in Golden Ochre. I think next up I'm probably going to hit pan on Buon Fresco, maybe Vermeer. I'm trying really hard on Cypress Umber, but obviously it's a dark shade, and I don't use dark shades quite as much as I do the transition shades in here. But I have significant dips in pretty much everything except for like Red Ochre, Venetian Red, Love Letter, and I use this abundantly. So this is my definitely most used palette in my collection. Also fairly not dirty for the amount of times I've used it, especially for the like velvet outer packaging. This has held up pretty well. Alright guys, that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed today's palette tag. I mean, that's like kind of what my channel revolved around for quite a bit of time, and it's still my favorite item of makeup to talk about. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed down below. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Turn on your bell notification to be crowned Dew Fairy of the Day. And if you made it to the very end of this video, you get the bonus meme. I love you. Bye.
No, very much I did not. What are you talking about? Not me. Wrong bitch.